And the question you just been asked, it's been mapped. Here we have the popversoda.com map from Alan McConchy, in which you essentially go into this website, you tell them where you're from, and then you tell them your answer: Coke, pop, soda, whatever. And this is the results. What you can see is definitely a pattern regionally in terms of the American South. Overwhelmingly, they call it Coke. Why? Because Coca-Cola is a southern product. It's from the South. It's from Atlanta, Georgia, where the headquarters of Coke is. It's where they have Coke World, Coca-Cola World, or whatever. So what you have here is you have some other regional patterns. You see, for example, in the northern part of the country, more likely to call it pop, where on the coasts, more likely to call it soda. But also in St. Louis, you kind of see that island of blue right in the middle of the country. In the St. Louis area, much more likely to call it soda. But if we look at Indiana, we can see a pattern in which, if you're from central Indiana, my guess is in the patterns that showcased here with the 3-point activity, you're more likely to call it a Coke. Even though it might be a Pepsi or Dr. Pepper, you still call it a Coke. Whereas if you go away from central Indiana, whether it be to the north or to the south, you see more or hear more people using the term pop. Whereas you go down to the southern border, though, the Ohio River, you can see Coke is more popular. And that the usage of Coke as a term is more popular. That relates to, definitely I would argue, along the Ohio River, you're more southern than you are northern. And so what this showcases, once again, regional differences in dialect in terms of what do you call that liquidy product that has caffeine that tastes so good. Now let's do some dialect examples. So first off, Yinzer's Jeetjet. And so that you, I hope, have no idea what I'm talking about unless you're from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And so what that's essentially asking is, have you guys eaten yet? And so in Pittsburgh, there's definitely a local dialect, which they use words that you wouldn't really use anywhere else in the country. And so it's a good example of a dialect. Another one would be this one here. That chowder is wicked tasty, brah. And so where that might sound at first like that's something from Boston, which it is, actually the word chowder is just more of a pronunciation. So what I did is just, that's how it's pronounced, chowder. Where the key to dialect here, though, is wicked. Now, wicked is not a term that's used heavily outside of this region. So wicked means it's really, really good. Whereas in other places, wicked might not mean the same thing. And so there, the dialect, wicked, is the example of the dialect in this particular sentence. Not so much chowder, because it's just a different pronunciation. Same with bra, as in bro, or whatever. Further accent symbols, another way to showcase this is this long sentence and try to use different examples. First off, if I was from the South, I would start this sentence by combining all those words into just one syllable, jaw. And so it's very much a Southern accent. Do you all? They would just pronounce that jaw. No dat on Tuesday. So some would say dat, and that's more of a Southern thing, particularly New Orleans. They're more likely to say dat with a D instead of with a TH on Tuesday. Very much a Hoosier to say Tuesday, to make an S sound like a Z, several Z's in a row. Further, the police versus police. Police is more of an urban pronunciation, but also here in rural areas as well, where police is, where it's not it's police is more pronounced in suburban areas, and it's all pretty much scattered throughout the country. Next up, we have Detroit versus Detroit. So in Indiana, we call it Detroit, but in Michigan, they call it Detroit. So Detroit is definitely another Hoosier pronunciation, a Hoosier accent to that word. Are not going to wash. For some reason in Appalachia, they add an R to wash, to make it sound worse. I don't understand it. But then also dim cells, like dat. Dim cells, another one that's a Southern accent. And then better versus better. And so often in Boston, you hear better instead of better to end, that term or that word. You have that kind of the instead of the Anyway. And so further examples, my grandma has a good grammar. So if I was from Boston, what that would sound like would be, my grandma has good grammar. And so that's an example of accent. So we're really picking on the Boston people, but that's fine because they have the Patriots and the Patriots cheat.